Um, I just want to do a brief overview of lay of the land here. There are four data center proposals moving in Montana right now. There's one, a crypto mine in Butte, that's getting moved by Atlas. There's an AI hyperscale data center in Butte as well, and that is by Saby. There's one in Broadview, and that proposed by Quantica, and one in Bonner, Montana, over in the Bonner Mill area. Um, However, there has been reported in talks with Northwestern Energy that there's 11 more data center developers proposing for Montana. And we don't know where these are. And that is why it's extremely important that we be proactive in our communities and get ahead of the game. Uh, Here in Broadview, where I live, we have seen just a lack of community input, and we kind of came into it too late. What happened is they bought the property quietly. They have made some backdoor deals, and the residents really were the last ones to know. Um, so these facilities consume as much energy as mid or large sized cities. They use an enormous amount of water. They occupy hundreds or even thousands of acres, like this one here in Broadview. The implications are significant for Montana's communities, economy, the ratepayers, and the environment. Tech companies and data center developers are skilled at limiting how much information about a planned data center reaches the public. One common strategy is entering into non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, with local officials. Such agreements prevent public officials from speaking openly about the project to the very citizens they represent. Many data center developers purchase the land around their site as well. So the surrounding land they'll purchase and make deals with the landowners. They also offer incentives such as we'll fix up your school, we'll pay for your sewage ponds, we've seen them run the gamut in other states as far as the incentives they'll offer. And then a report by the Union of Concerned Scientists found that utilities in 7 states, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, passed more than 4.3 billion in transmission connection costs for large data centers onto all ratepayers in 2024. And then here in Yellowstone County, we have not only a lack of water, but we also have very poor water. And so it would be interesting to know exactly if we could get some transparency from Quantica, that would be nice. But unfortunately, that just hasn't happened. And so we don't know how many gallons per day they'll be using of water. And this could potentially bring down the water table and lower all the wells in the surrounding area. So all of us ranchers, farmers, and just residents, all our wells could be lowered and obviously contaminated as well, because our water is pretty low quality. I think the last parts per million was 5,800. So, and that's in dissolved solids. Um, and there is also a huge question around uh, how are they going to get their power. There's been some backdoor deals on that. The lack of zoning and oversight are another impact we're seeing. And I just encourage all of you to gather tonight, get to know each other in your communities, and start making a plan and be proactive so that you're not playing catch up like we are in Broadview. And with that, I would like to, we are not, we're not big tech's wasteland. Uh, and we will feel these impacts for years to come. And so I'd like to pass this to Mike, and I'm just grateful that you're all here, and thank you for showing up for your community.
Thanks so much, Cassie. My name is Mike McDearman. For the many folks on this call that I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I live in Lewistown and I'm a member of Central Montana Resource Council. I've also worked in the tech sector for a little over 15 years now, building software in sectors ranging from healthcare, weather, shipping, host of others, as well as both data centers and artificial intelligence. And I wanted to piggyback on everything Cassie has said and kind of zoom out for just a little bit from our state specifically and provide a little bit of perspective in what I'm observing in the tech industry in the national level. And then we'll pass it to Annika to help us think about how we can organize as a community of Montanans. So, nationally, AI is driving investment in data centers at historic speed and scale. States like Montana have become targets for data center developers and for big tech companies because of our combination of relatively cheap land, power, water, and low regulatory pushback to slow them down. The more of these criteria that you can check if you're a tech company, the more attractive a state is to development. And while we don't have all of these equally checked, the combination, in particular, of relatively cheap land and a low regulatory framework means that tech companies are going to try to do whatever they can to solve the power and water issues to help them continue to move quickly. And as I'll talk about in a second, this is nothing new. This is the playbook for tech companies, large, medium, and small, to move as quickly as they can to get their ideas to market. Jack, if you can go to the next slide. So what this means is a historic amount of capital coming into a small amount of companies means that we're seeing city-sized data center campuses built with remarkable speed. This example is Meta's Hyperion data center. It's rendered over Manhattan here. This is actually a marketing image that was shared by Meta themselves, talking about how great, from their perspective, the size and speed of rollout of campuses this large is. These are marketing images for their customers designed to showcase how much power and therefore compute they will be able to sell to people that need to train models. In this case, this is their own data center campus, so it's going to therefore be used to showcase how powerful their models are that they're going to be building using this data center campus. But the long and short of it is that we're looking at projects where just one project alone, as Cassie said, has huge impact. So my guess is that we would be having this call even if one of these campuses was being built either in Montana or a nearby state. Because of these numbers, we're talking 4 million square feet for this project alone, 5 gigawatts of power, which is more than 5 Montanas, and $27 billion, which is just a huge amount of capital. So one of these projects has multi-state resource implications, and Meta is far from being alone here. So if you go to the next slide, Jack. Thank you. What this rolls up to is a boom that is the industrial scale rollout of generative AI. And I've been looking for historical analogs that are honest with what we're seeing. And I really do think that this is akin to what we've seen before in the United States when there are historic moments like this, like the late 1800s railroad boom, on a few levels. You need vast upfront capital to build all the infrastructure. And just like in the railroad days, only a few companies in the world have this much money today as they did back in the 1880s. Railroads also transformed the country. We're still living with the legacy of railroads today, and you can see that and how they have, we didn't have time zones before railroads. So a handful of companies changed how America, relates to time and business. Transformed, the food industry, agriculture, everything. And the potential of AI is that significant, which is why we are seeing this much capital being pushed into a handful of companies with this much speed. The last thing is the percentage of the economy, right? So we're not quite at railroad peak railroad yet in 1870, which is about 6% of GDP. But we're on our way. So last year we were at 1.5% of GDP. And that means that AI has already surpassed the dot-com boom of the 1990s, which capped out at about 1% of GDP. And if the big four hyperscalers proceed with plans as they have stated in the Q1 of 2025, we should see more than 1.5% this year. So we're closing the gap. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, before I pass things off to Annika, I think we're all here because we understand data centers in a nutshell. And I'm not here to talk about like the specifics. I just wanted to zoom out for a second and talk about the bigger picture, um, which is to me that combination of these four things. You know, the business potential is undoubtedly huge and transformative, which is why we see such speed and enthusiasm from a handful of companies. It's really a race mentality between the giants to develop data centers, train the best models as fast as they can, and secure market position over their closest competitors. And the scale and speed of this investment is historic, as we just talked about. Industrial revolution, both in the scale of the investment and the labor impact potential. When you think about the impact of artificial intelligence on jobs, both white and blue collar. Third is that tech's motto, as long as I've been in it, has been move fast, break things. And it's all fun and games when the scale is small, but when we see this kind of investment, that is why we are here today, I believe. That's why I'm here, certainly. And the giants will do what they can to operate in a low to no regulatory environment for as long as they can. This is the way it's been for as long as I've been, and surely before then, as we saw in railroads. That was tech of the 1870s. And that leads me to wrap up. That's why we're here. That's why we need to organize now, so that four companies don't write all the rules for us before we really understand what's happening. And that is, from my perspective, the goal of the companies anyway. So with that, I would love to pass the baton to Annika to talk about how do we organize? What do we do now?
Thanks, Mike, and thank you all for coming. Yeah, my name is Annika, and I live in Boulder at the moment. And yeah, so as we just heard from Mike and Cassie, the stakes really are high in terms of these data center developments and their potential impacts on Montanans. And so we want to lay out a little bit of our organizing plan, how to push back against these developments and protect Montana from the impacts of data centers. And, I think like we all sometimes feel really deflated by all this information and all these like potential harmful impacts. And I think this, like all of you showing up tonight, shows that we can do a lot when we come together. And our power really comes from organizing people across the state and then showing up and showing that power. And so that's sort of the focus of our organizing plan. And we know that the state legislature will meet again in spring of 2026, and that is going to have a massive impact on what these developments will look like in Montana in the future. And we want to make sure that the legislators know where we stand and what we want to see when they make their decisions in the legislature. So our idea for this organizing is really to build this movement leading up to the legislature and then show up with 1,000 people coming together at the Capitol in February and really showing our power and pushing for the needed protections from data center impacts. Because, there's always like people can spin facts or ignore information, but you can't ignore the power of 1,000 people coming together around a shared agenda. And so that's really, yeah, that's why we're doing this. And so for our idea for getting that many people to the Capitol in February, and what we're doing up until then is really focused on building teams and organizing locally. And that is, to sort of start building this movement leading up to the legislature, but also because we know, as we've heard already, that there's already a lot of developments happening, and often communities are finding out way too late already about what is happening. And so we want to make sure to organize locally as well in teams for local regulations like moratoriums or resolutions, prohibiting elected officials from having these kinds of NDAs with developers to protect us from those backdoor deals and make sure that communities for sure know what's going on, but also can participate and have their voices heard in this process. And so we're hoping to build teams and have started in across communities in Montana who will all organize locally, but also work for the same end goal, which is to push for state policy that puts everyday Montanans' interests first. And of course, the wins that local teams can achieve locally will help us have more leverage at the capital at the state level as well once we get there. And those local teams will be led by team leaders or captains across the state, and those, will help organize their communities locally, but also act as liaisons to the broader statewide organizing movement that we're building to make sure that we're not just, siloed in our little teams across the state, but also always come back together and bring our power together around our shared agenda statewide. And in terms of that statewide level, we're also planning to have bigger statewide actions throughout the year building up to the legislature. And those could be things like press conferences, public meetings, with elected officials invited, rallies, and things like that. And those will be really critical in also inviting more people to join this movement, to show, we're doing something about this and we're building power and to encourage more folks to come out and show up for those actions. And those statewide actions will also be a way to tie together the local teams and their campaigns around that shared statewide strategy to show again that we're not just separate little teams, but really building our power together and building on, as our local power grows, also our statewide power grows. And the captains of the teams that I just mentioned will help plan and turn out their local teams to the statewide actions when they happen. And of course, the statewide actions will help or will be a way to get on the radar of legislators and other key decision makers to show them our power and demonstrate we're serious about this and show what we would like to see in the state moving forward regarding this issue. And yeah, that's basically our broad plan outline for our organizing movement. And we would love to have you all join us in this movement as you are able to participate. And I'll turn it back over to Mike to start further discussion on how to participate.
Sweet. Thanks so much, Annika. We have a very, very big room here. We've got 90 participants, which is awesome. It is too big for us all to share one room. So what we thought that we would do is randomly disperse into some smaller groups where we can discuss a couple things. We'd love for folks to introduce yourselves as a community of members. And we've also got, some electeds and others here representing those community members. Introduce yourselves, get to know each other, share your thoughts and concerns and what brought you here today. And also, we'd love for you to think about what a powerful team in your community could look like. Some of you may be in communities where you're already organizing, like I am in Lewistown and Cassie is in Broadview. Others might not have a community put together or captain identified or any kind of momentum. So we'd love to hear you talk about what it would take to build that momentum if it doesn't exist yet. And what you might need to get there. So Jack is going to take those two prompts. What would a powerful team in your community look like? And what would you need to get there into the chat? And we'll go ahead and break out, talk in our small groups for 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll reconvene and share some of the things that we discussed in our small groups and wrap up with any questions that folks in the community have before we wrap up for the night. So go ahead and break us into our groups, Jack, and we'll catch you on the flip side. You should, by the way, if you've never been in a Zoom breakout room before, be seeing a little pop-up that says join breakout room. You can click join or you'll be, yeah, you actually have to click join. You won't be automatically put in your room. So hit that blue join button and that'll send you into your room. Catch you back in 10, 15 minutes. Thanks. Collective again. As folks trickle back in, this is really the thrust of what we wanted to get out of this call was having people meet each other, share ideas, and start that process, especially if you're in a community that hasn't been organized yet, to just meet some like-minded folks that are concerned about the same thing. We were hoping to do a little bit of a round robin share out if anybody from a breakout room, caught wind of something inspiring, wanted to share out with the group, maybe just take like one or two folks before we wrap up our call tonight, just to have a little bit of discussion before some Q&A. Really quick before I do that, before you come off mute, if you wanted to share something, we wanted to share with you, we'll leave this here, obviously, and you've got a QR code that you can scan to share some information to be involved in a team or be a captain. There are a couple ways to get involved that we encourage you to explore. One is to join a local team if you're part of a community that has one, and hopefully you heard some things in your breakouts. Where there are hopefully a couple folks that are at least in your neck of the woods that you can spin up a team with. But these teams, again, are community-based groups of people organizing for local actions in your neck of the woods, turning out to the periodic statewide actions that we'll be telling you more about through Northern Plains, and then bringing new people into the team so that we can grow our collective power towards that milestone that Annika mentioned earlier on February 10th ahead of the legislative session. You can also be a captain of a team if you're in a part of the state where nobody's mobilized yet. That could be you to help build that momentum. So we've got folks, myself in Lewistown. We've also got a whole crew of leaders in Lewistown that's pushing this, as well as Cassie Broadview, our core team here that you heard from throughout the evening. Or be a liaison between the team and the statewide group that is also mobilizing as well. So just a couple ideas to help get you organized and activated. With that, I wanted to invite anybody that had something they wanted to share from their breakout group, a reflection to share with the broader collective here, to come off mute and say a word or two.
Can I suggest something from our group?
Please go for it, Tom.
Okay, we had three people, and very impressive, frankly. I was very concerned about the regulatory issues. We're about to double the size of the electricity that's provided in Montana with just one data center, and we have several ongoing requesting. And that's going to cause a huge problem that has to be solved by the Public Service Commission and, more importantly, by the legislature. The legislature is going to have to get involved one way or the other, or they will get involved whether we like it or not. And we need to be careful about that. What I'm really concerned about is that the that our utility, Northwestern Energy, doesn't seem to have their act together very well right now. We know that they are not very good when we came to the problems with Laurel and plant, and they're going to be 10 to 20 or 30 times more serious than that. They don't like the energy, the renewable energy. It seems like they want to have more fossil fuel plants. I think we're going to have that problem to deal with, and there is no way they're going to provide the people of Montana with all the electricity that's going to be required with these data centers without affecting the ratepayers a lot. A couple of things that were brought up in our committee was one. Joan said something about how about a moratorium? Maybe we should have a moratorium so that we can get an idea of what needs to be done around here. Great idea, and and that's something we need to think about. And that was work, by the way, when we were faced coal plants. And another one was zoning.
Four states have passed moratoria. Four.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and that I think is really worth something to look into. I think, and then the other one was zoning, county zoning. There's a lot of county zoning that can have a huge impact on what's going on here, and they have the authority. Counties have the authority to do that. So that's really great. What really bothers me is our utility does not seem to have their feet on the ground on this one. They don't seem to know what's going on. They came out with the first idea that we're going to have a company that's separate from them altogether, but we're gonna run it, and they won't have any way to get any more money out of the ratepayers. That won't work.
So one
They
thing
look
that I think
next.
came out of our group, Tom, is that people talked about trying to get organized locally right now, because if we wait for the legislature, we feel like it's going to be too late. I mean, I think we need to organize towards the legislature, but for example, how can non-disclosure agreements be legal in this state when we have open meeting laws? That seems like that's something that somebody should take on legally. Our commissioner shouldn't be able to be meeting with companies and making deals, and we can't know about it. So anyway, that's one of the ideas that came up in our group, and I'd be interested to hear what other groups had to say.
Well, and Terry, thanks. This is Mary, and I'm not going to speak very long, but I butted my head in our group because I also think waiting for a rally when the legislature convenes is too late. I think we need to really know, people locally need to be questioning any candidate running for anything, where they stand on this, and then would they support a 2-year moratorium? And, because we don't, if they're pro, and these companies are doing a lot of PR and working with chambers and all that, and making, promises to unions and stuff about jobs, most of which are not true. But I think the idea is you need to be questioning your candidates if anybody comes to your door, or publicly asking them where they stand on this, and are they willing to support a moratorium or something like that before they're in office.
Thanks so much for offering that, Mary, Tom, and Terry. Great thoughts. I'm hearing a lot of solutions in terms of, things I'm hearing, other states doing, right? Moratoriums. I think part of the prompt too is in spirit of how we get those things to happen or similar things. And Mary, I'm hearing you bring up something that our group talked about, which was make this a campaign issue, push our electeds to put real protections in place and start to light a little bit of a fire. I'm curious what other ideas in terms of building collective and community power folks talked about in their groups in terms of, yes, there's a whole host of things that we could do. We're seeing other states start to do them. How do we get there? What are some of the ideas that folks were talking about their small groups in terms of how we build that momentum?
One thing that came out of our group is that there needs to be education, because people like me, we hear data centers use a lot of energy, and I didn't know until recently I use a lot of water. I think a lot of people would definitely help us, but they don't really know everything. Even like the jobs. Oh, the unions are going to make jobs. How long term? How short term? I think there needs to be a lot of education out there, because I, for one, am terribly ignorant.
Thanks so much, Paul. Education was probably the number one other theme that came up in our small group as well. So definitely a theme there that is shared across groups. really quickly, I know we're at the top of the hour and we don't want to keep people until 7:15 just to keep people. I think we have accomplished our main goal that we had for this session, which was to bring this group of folks that are concerned about this issue together and start to put names to faces and organize in small groups. Yeah, would love to maybe get one or two more thoughts before we move to close. And Freya, I see you have raised your hand. Please go for
I,
it.
I was just wondering, do you have a little like a thing we can share on social media from today, or
We
a little
absolutely will.
educational thing? If
Yeah,
you give it to us, send it to us, we can, disseminate it further.
right on. Yes, if you are part of this, just by being part of this meeting, you'll receive a follow-up email that'll include, I believe, the recording, some of the slides, and additional information. So please, Jack and others, if I'm missing anything, jump in and let me know if there's anything else that is an immediate next step coming out of this meeting.
But though that won't get us back in touch with one another, will it? You're not making a mailing list or a group list of any kind out of these attendees, right? So if the idea was to organize and to reach out across counties, how would sending us this recording help us?
So we will follow up with people also depending on your area to organize those local teams, and then and as people have signed up on the form. So we will be in touch with people based on their location to connect people locally, and then also have those team leaders specific to their statewide movement.
I missed that last part. Somebody's microphone introduced some noise, but I heard you say that there's going to be some form of inter-county best practice sharing as well as local organizing. Is that what you said?
Yes, that basically what I shared before. So we will connect people locally, but then we also have those team leaders or captains that will serve as the liaisons between groups. And so
Okay.
though there will be leaders that will share information or strategy across groups
Okay.
as we follow up as we go along with this. Yes.
Thanks. And I think MEIC might already be doing a little bit of that. If you go to meic.org/data centers with a hyphen, they've actually put a fair amount of information there for local groups that want to put up resistance.
Thanks so much for your questions, David. I see two more hands. We've got Bill and Joshua. Let's go with Bill first. You are on mute, by the way.
Yeah. I just have a quick question that, somebody suggested make it a campaign issue, and I think that's a very good idea. My question then is, how do we do that? How does an ordinary person like me start to get that to happen?
So this
I
is
can
Mary.
help a little bit with that. I think, as a former legislator, I think that it would be really helpful for people to start saying, hey, this looks like it's going to cost everybody in Montana more money for electricity. We need legislation that will help prevent that. That's what we need to do, and that will make sense to it. And we've got to have legislation. If somebody comes in and says, we have a big data center and we want to put it in, and the Northwest Energy said, no, we don't want to do that, they'll probably be sued, because under our utility provisions, they have to provide electricity.
So,
That
I
can be
guess,
changed by the legislature.
right. But I think, Bill, this is Mary. Hi, Bill. I think the issue is trying to write letters, use social media or whatever, any chance you get get it in any questionnaires that go to people who are running for office. Work on local strategies to make people who are running locally get on the record about where they stand with this and would they support a moratorium. And it probably depends on, where you are, but there's lots of opportunities to just put people on the record. And if they won't go on the record, then make that public.
There's also a lot of newspapers now publishing op-eds, which you can write to. If you can put it in 500 words, you can get it in print. That'll end up in a digital format. You can forward around on socials or in emails. So there's a lot of those options are now cropping up, even here in Great Falls, where the Tribune is more or less dead. We do have a new paper called the Great Falls Gazette that will publish op-eds of any length 5 to 6 times a week.
And
Thank you so much.
use your social network. I mean, use people you know. Just talk to people you know. And if you talk to 10 people and they talk to 10 people, it matters.
Beautiful segue into the point that I was going to add to that, which is that, and thank you all for chiming in with awesome ideas. I don't think that there's going to be one size fits all to whoever asked that question originally. And I think part of our goal tonight was to get people talking in local areas. And I know it's hard to do that with the random assortment. Someone had brought up the idea of us sending out like a list of the folks who joined in and where they might be coming from. And so I think that that's a great idea that we ought to consider if folks are comfortable with that. But thank you so much for contributing the ideas that you have. I see we have a couple more hands, and then let's get some last words and wrap it up for the evening so we can keep people on time. Joshua, let's go to you, and then I see Christine.
Well, I just wanted to bring up that for me personally, because I do have some investment into the AI infrastructures, and I want to find ways that this is community beneficial and not predatory in any way, shape, or form. But so I want to organize a group that would like to go and investigate these existing data centers, because there's a lot of talk and a lot of words going around, but you don't really know until you really put your foot on the ground, talk to the people affected, talk to the people operating, and get an actual sense of these operations. And so I would like to put that forward as something to do. I will be doing it no matter what, just because I have to do it in my line of what I'm doing. But I would rather that be done as a larger group, represent and benefit more people with that information.
Right on. Thank you, Joshua. And Christine, let's hear from you.
Hi, I just was on another call about data centers, a national one with Third Act, which I'd never heard of, but they've got a very robust data center opposition thing going. And one of the things they advertised is that we have lawyers. If you're trying to fight a data center lawsuit, get in touch. We have lawyers, which was really surprising to hear. And then also they had links to policy. So, Tom was talking about policy, Mary's talking about policy. There's several different areas about data centers with draft policy, which covers a lot of things I didn't think of until so it's worth looking at. I put the link in the chat. That's it. Oh, there's a lot of people doing this. We don't have to invent the wheel ourselves. There's a lot of people. We should benefit from that.
Totally. Carrie, I see in the chat, you asked what was the name again. I heard Christine say Third Act. Is that right, Christine? Cool.
Yes, Third Act.
Right on. Well, thank you all so much. I am hearing the sense of urgency and enthusiasm around this issue. I want to thank everybody again for hopping on. Tom for kicking us off. Annika for leading your session on how we can start to organize around this. And Cassie as well for talking about some of the stakes at the local level, what you're seeing in Broadview. And to all of you for joining and sharing your energy and enthusiasm. I know this may seem a little anticlimactic because this is the start of an organizing kickoff, and we don't have all the answers right now, but you being here is the best start to us being successful. So we'll turn back a wrap-up email that summarizes everything as quickly as we can and get folks that are eager and excited connected to local people in their area so you can start to mobilize with us. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for organizing.
Bye.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
How do I get off this dang thing? Okay.
Sounds like it's over.